do want to start back when we first started buying properties. My wife was willing but not really excited about it. Anyway, we go forward. We go forward 6 or 7 years, and I was working a third shift. So I'd come home, go to bed in the morning, and get up at night and go into work. So it started with she didn't really want to do any real estate investment. I get up one night 7 years later, and she says, "Hey, we bought a house today." I'm like, "We did." So she told me all about it. Good little deal, single family in Concord, nice little spot, family buildings all around. We got in there, renovated, took the washer and dryer from down the basement, put it upstairs, and took the kitchen sink out of a half bathroom and moved it out of the kitchen island. Anyway, did quite a bit of work. Managed that for 3 or 4 years, and then we had moved out of Concord, moved up north, so we were going to sell the building. Well, as we're getting ready to sell the building, we find out that, and it's all good, but like a lot of sober living facilities started buying the properties around, so you know, just the market value kind of to a residential buyer kind of went down. But meanwhile, the next door neighbor of the sober living facility had approached us to see if we wanted to rent it. So sure, let's try that, because we knew we weren't going to sell it for what we wanted. We were out of town, they were going to manage everything. So they started the rent, but they were looking to still fill the beds. There was no one in the house yet, and it was probably like November. It was actually really cold, there was a big storm. Power went out. When the power came back on, the furnace didn't kick back on. So we had frozen pipes upstairs. They happened to see water running on the outside of the house. So the manager from that other building had access to the key, the house, so they went in and turned the water off. Well, so part of the horror is, you know, finding that happening. So from December through the following August, we had no income, and we were working on remodeling that. Insurance was actually pretty decent, but it was a pain in the butt. Fortunately, we had like a loss of income rider. But it's just one of those things where, and now it's back to the same company as renting it for even a little bit more, and it kind of worked out, but what a up and down with that property. Thanks.
Yeah, frozen pipes are a nightmare. When your tenant calls and says they turned on the faucet and it didn't come out, it's like, no. Yeah. Anybody else got a spooky story they want to share? Adam?
I was looking at a property in Manchester that got seized by, I think it was the U.S. Marshals, because he was like one of the biggest heroin dealers in all of Manchester. So when I was looking around, it was like completely effed up. Like all the walls were messed up. Like just looked like a bunch of drug addicts had burrowed their way through the whole place. So I saw like one wall, and it said, "She never loved you." And that was it. That's my story.
Not a renovation story. It's a house we bought to renovate. It was a 2-bedroom on a slab over in Manchester, a nice little neighborhood. We met the lady there that was selling it. She was very obese, heavy woman. I looked in her car, and there was just like a space where she could sit in the front seat, and everything else was just junk and garbage and books and wrappers. And I don't think she even got out of the car. She said, "You know, I can't get out. You know, I can't walk very well, and you can just go in." So she's like, "Well, I haven't lived in the house in 2 years, or 2 years." And the story was, the furnace had broke, and she couldn't get it fixed, and then the pipes froze, and she had no water for a long time. She was still living there, and then it just went downhill from there. So she ended up moving out, living in a hotel for a while. So when we met her, she was living in a hotel, and she was kind of down to her last, $1,000, and she really needed help. So I said, "All right, I'll go check it out." So she says, "Yeah, there's just a few things in there. You know, there's a lot of stuff. I collected a lot of stuff." So we go in the door, and it's just like the Hoarders on a TV show you see on TV is exactly like that. There's garbage about 3 feet high. The only thing that was weird, there was no paths. So on the TV shows, they always have these little paths to to get from one room to the other. Nope, you just had to walk on top of the garbage to get from one room to the next. And I'm looking around and there's bird poop on every surface. Like a bird would land here and it was just covered. The doors, the cabinets to the stereo system, the refrigerator, it was just everywhere. And so we're walking to the house, it smelled, it was pretty bad. I was like, okay, all right, well. And we get to the bathroom and open the bathroom door, same thing, it's full of stuff. And I look in the bathtub and it's just, there's a pile of market basket bags about 6 feet high and a big pyramid of them. And we're looking at them, and we get a little closer, and just like my other story, they were full of shit. She had no water, no heat, and so she was putting the market basket bags and throwing them into the bathtub. And I was like, all right, well, the price just keeps going down and down. This is good. I was like, this is great. I love this. This is awesome. All right, we're going to get this for nothing. She's going to pay us money to buy this house. So, yeah, I go outside and I kind of tell her, yeah, we looked at it, you know, it's pretty bad, you know, and she understood. And she asked me a favor. She said, well, could you do me one thing? Could you go inside to the kitchen and in the freezer, I put my 2 cockatoos in there, my birds, that died 2 years ago. Can you get those out for me? And I want to have them again. And I was like, oh boy. I was like, whatever her name was, Stacy or something. I said, we got to let some things go. I know this is hard for you, but I think we should start with the birds. You got to let the birds go. That refrigerator is going to be duct tape shut. It's never going to be opened again. It's been 2 years, and they're going to smell like it's going to be horrible. So she was crying a little bit, but you know, she agreed, and we went over to Dunkin' Donuts later that day. We signed the contract for, I think we bought it for 50 grand maybe, and then we immediately wholesaled to somebody else. Actually, no, we cleaned it out. It was $7,000 to clean it out. It took 4 or 5 guys, 3 days to clean that out, and it was a 2-bedroom, no basement. It was crazy, and we made 50 grand on that whole thing, and he fixed it up and sold it, and people living there now. And they have no idea.
I've never heard anything like that before in my life.
Brad, you should, did you take any pictures of the house?
Can't make this
Yeah,
shit
I
up.
got pictures.
You should print the pictures, put them in an unmarked envelope, and just drop it in the mailbox. And the new occupants are gonna be like, oh, in the bathroom, no. All right, anyone else got any other spooky stories?
Hey guys, so I was reviewing my utility bills, and we get a bill for Manchester Waterworks for $1,500 for that quarter. This is a 4-family in Manchester on Sagamore Street. Started panicking. Why is it $1,500? Started doing the research, looking at prior bills, and they were quite a bit lower. So immediately I think the worst. We must have some kind of a broken pipe somewhere. Called my handyman. He quickly gets in his car, started driving over to that 4-family. He gets in there, gets in the basement, he gives me a call and says, well, there's no leaking water, everything's dry, but I did find something else. So he sends a couple of pictures, and there was 2 or 3 people just sleeping in our basement. Before we could call the police, they woke up and they left. So it turns out we have these rough tenants on the first floor. The woman is a pretty respectable woman. She's on Section 8, but when she was working long hours, she was allowing her daughter to come and stay with her. And her daughter had definitely a drug addict boyfriend. And at some point, for extra income, they started renting out the basement to other homeless individual junkies. And what they would allow them to do is to come into the unit and take showers there and do their laundry. So we had high water bills because of the extra water usage inside the unit. And then they would allow them to camp out and sleep in the basement for extra income. Yeah. So as soon as we found that out, we immediately told her we are moving forward with the eviction, and she was month to month, and no longer had a problem. Thanks.
So when we were at 10 units under management, I was the property property manager. I had no idea what I was doing. And I remember getting a call, it was 6 a.m., I was at the gym, and somebody called, and they were we just bought the building, it was a 6 unit, and it was an inherited building, and she was saying like, water, 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 like flood. And then, so I rushed over to the building, and it started at the 3rd floor, and the pipe broke into the 2nd, into the 1st, into the basement. And so the hard part is we require renter's insurance, but we inherited the tenants, and they did not have any. And so they looked at us and said, okay, where are we staying? And we did put them up for a period of time, but like our insurance, I think everyone assumes that our insurance covers it, and it just, we don't. So I'll show a picture. So, oh, that's a different one. But anyway, this was a snake found. Oh, this was the flood. And then this was a snake found in like a freezer chest. Somebody got evicted. And then the repair guy, or like our handyman, ended up like keeping the chest. He wanted to keep it, so he just cleaned it out and probably is using it today. Oh, an infant was living in that apartment with the sink looking like that, which was really sad. And that was the flood. And then we hired Ryan, because I was like, I'm never doing this again.
All right. Let's see. We've got 7 people in the running for the gift cards. It's another spooky story. Come on up. All right. Thanks very much.
I went to, but why not?
All right.
All right. So I was doing job for an investor, and this was an interesting project where they were very adamant about what they didn't want to work on as their investment property. They kind of had it all laid out. We got brought in. The hot water, or the boiler, the furnace was maybe 50 years old or something like that. And they said, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. But the hot water heater had blown out. So we had to bring them in and said, well, could you maybe just give it a little inspection, see what we could do? Every plumber, HVAC person I said, didn't want to touch it. 10-foot pole, said, not even going to get my name on this. I want nothing to do with this. You need to replace it. They didn't want to. Anyway, so then we just continue on with the project, hoping to hell that the house could stay heated over the winter. Of course, my flooring guys run a nail through the hot water line, and so a little 2-inch splice on a simple hot water heat, I couldn't get anybody to do, and finally convinced somebody to just take care of the little splice and replace it. And we were able to continue on and get that all replaced, and we were trying to do the right thing. So I was like, oh, you know what, your thermostats are old, why don't I just go ahead and replace them? I don't really want to put this in my name or anything else. And then of course the furnace stops working later, and they say, oh, well, you touched the thermostats, so are you sure you didn't do something that harmed the furnace and hurt everything else there? So we'd given them quotes for everything else, and of course they didn't want to do that, and we were trying to do the right thing. And then next thing you know, they were trying to put us on the hook for a $15,000 furnace, and we didn't agree to any of that. So anyways, and from the contractor's perspective, just be mindful of us. I'm no longer in the business. I'm hoping to be an investor going forward, but I'm getting back to doing a W-2. So anyways, it's been a fun journey.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, you gotta be careful, please. It's like, it's not broken. Just don't touch it, don't look at it, it's fine. You wanna share one more? Yeah, sure.
Kathy's story made me think of this one. I was out hiking, and I was coming off the hike, and I get these short little videos, and I start playing one, and we have these kind of 2-inch white blinds that we bought from Home Depot on all the windows, and there's just like a cascading waterfall coming down these blinds, and another video is of water filling up a lamp. So I started panicking. This is a 2-family in Manchester, and there was water coming down from the 2nd floor to the 1st floor. And the very book the message is, oh, we were able to find the other tenant, and we went down to the basement, and we turned off the water. So the water eventually kind of stopped coming down. I quickly get in my car, drive down to Manchester, kind of start figuring out what took place. So in the basement, there's a steam boiler, and I guess the heat wasn't working that well, so the tenant from the second floor went into the basement, saw a little blinking light, and that blinking light said low water. So he saw a faucet, a little handle. He decided to be his own plumber, and he turned it on, right? And shortly afterwards, the light went from yellow to green. He thought, oh great, that was the problem. He went back upstairs to his unit, but he never turned off the water. And this is a steam boiler that becomes pressurized with steam and then comes out of the radiators. Well, there was so much water coming in that the water started going into the actual pipes, and the water circulated through all the radiators, and once the pressure built up way too much, water started squirting from the sides of all the radiators in the entire unit, from the bedrooms to the kitchen to the little third extra nook. And water then just started coming down from all the crevices into the first floor unit. So yeah, I told him, please don't ever take any plumbing responsibilities on your shoulders again, and he lost his entire security deposit, but ended up staying for another 2 years. So everything dried, no mold, so far we're okay.
DIY.
All right, anyone else got a spooky story they'd like to share? No? Going once? No? Nobody else? Win $50 or $100 gift card. Okay, I'll share one more of my own, and then we'll call it a night. So I mentioned earlier, I started my business September 2020. We've been in business for a little over 4 years now. When I was first getting started, obviously I didn't have a lot of experience, and particularly I didn't have a lot of experience with evictions. So I made some mistakes with my first couple evictions. There was this one guy, his name was Gary, and he it was incredibly frustrating. So this was a property that my client bought. One guy living in a 5-bedroom apartment by himself, paying $600 a month in rent. The story was the past owner was using it as a rooming house, or a rooming apartment, I suppose. And then eventually all of the other people who were renting bedrooms there moved out, and all that was left was Gary. And he had been living alone for about 6 months, paying $600 a month, and then the building sold. So Gary had a lease for apparently this entire unit for $600 a month. Well, 5-bedroom apartments do not rent in Manchester, New Hampshire for $600 a month. And the unit itself needed quite a bit of work. So we politely asked Gary to move out. He immediately stopped paying rent. We said, we gave him a good notice. We said, hey, can you be out in 2 or 3 months? But he stopped paying rent. So we said, okay, well, you still have to pay rent if you're there for the 2 or 3 months. Started evicting him for non-payment. This was during COVID, right? So the courts were way slower if they were hearing any cases at all. It was sort of on and off. There was not a lot of clear communication about what was going on. So it took forever to get the case heard. Finally got the case heard after maybe 3 months, and I had messed something up on the notice. Case defeated. Had to re-deliver the notice, restart the process. The courts had slowed down further, so it took another 3 or 4 months, so we're 6 or 7 months in now, to finally have the case reheard. We win judgment, so we win the writ of possession. We go to evict him after 6 or 7 months here, and those of you who were landlords during COVID might remember, they had a moratorium on evictions. And Gary, one day before the sheriff came to lock him out, filed the moratorium paperwork that says, hey, you can't evict me because I'm, XYZ special person, and showed that to the sheriff when we showed up to lock him out. Eviction defeated for an unknown amount of time. That unknown amount of time ended up being about another 6 months of not receiving any rent. So it ended up being about 13 months of not receiving rent for this unit before we finally got Gary to move out. So that was horrible. And I certainly learned a lot about the eviction process and about the importance of getting it right the first time. All right, one last chance. Anyone else want to share a spooky story?